The Allen Line Company appreciates all of the dedicated carriers it takes to move loads across the U.S. Stay safe.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Scott Thompson.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in. We'll get a check on the top headlines in trucking here in just a moment, and after that, a number of conversations for your listening pleasure this Friday. Our Truckers for Troops series commemorating Military Appreciation Month continues with an Army veteran and former truck driver who's getting back on his feet thanks to the Veterans Community Project. He explains how he went from being homeless to full of hope for the future. Then you may have noticed that the aggressive push to electrify the trucking industry is getting more attention and quite a bit more pushback. From harsh words in Congress to eyebrow-raising cost analysis from a well-known company and more, Tyson Fisher and Mark Shermer of Landline Magazine stop by for a roundtable discussion on all the latest. And after that, we'll close the show out by visiting with OOIDA board member Doug Smith, who says making sure your voice is heard is crucial in the trucking industry. Smith details his work on various committees and tells us why he does it. All that coming right up. But first, the news with Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Scott. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is confident that Baltimore's shipping channel will be fully reopened at the end of this month. In an interview with the BBC, he talked about the importance of the port.
This is a very important port, especially for vehicles. It's actually the number one port in the U.S. For vehicles coming in and out, and it has such specialized facilities that right now, in the meantime, even as other ports in places like Georgia and Rhode Island temporarily accept those shipments, sometimes they still have to bring them back to the grounds of the Port of Baltimore for some of the processes that go on there. So it's a very important facility, most important, of course, for the workers who are there, whose lives have been disrupted by not having that vessel traffic in and out. But the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which is leading that process of removing the wreckage from the channel, they've set very ambitious targets. So far, they've hit every one of their targets, and I'm fully confident that by the end of May, they'll have the vessel out of the way, the wreckage out of the way.
According to the BBC article, the channel was thought to reopen on or about May 10th, but officials have said weather and the extreme complexity of the cleanup operation have led to some delays. Next Tuesday will be the start of the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance's International Road Check. From May 14th through the 16th, the high-visibility, high-volume commercial motor vehicle inspection and regulatory compliance enforcement initiative will take place in Canada, Mexico, and the United States. This year's focus is on tractor protection systems and alcohol and controlled substance possession. You can expect to see CVSA-certified law enforcement personnel at weigh and inspection stations, temporary sites, and mobile patrols to verify compliance with federal, state, provincial, or territorial regulations. This week and next, Truckers for Troops is recognizing Military Appreciation Month by highlighting some of the work OOIDA does to support our men and women who serve. Money raised from the annual campaign goes towards care packages, as well as programs that support homeless veterans, including the Veterans Community Project. Richard Middleton served in the Army, is a former truck driver, and is a current resident at the VCP. He says being accepted into the program was life-changing.
There's a joy that you fought hard for what you're doing. Homelessness is not happy, it's not a great feeling. And once they said yes, it was like a weight off my shoulders.
To hear Richard's full interview, stay tuned to later in our show. A maintenance worker was killed in New York on Thursday while they were setting up a work zone on I-90 near Henrietta. New York State Thruway Authority said the man was struck by a tractor-trailer while working. Another colleague was also hit and sustained serious injuries. New York State Police are investigating the crash. Mystery continues to surround the case of a missing truck driver in Canada. CBC News reports that the remains of a Newfoundland truck driver were found in the back of his trailer, despite police allegedly having searched his truck. Brian Lush went missing 2 weeks ago in Ontario. His truck was a key piece of evidence and the place he was last seen. According to the article, Ontario Provincial Police confirmed this week that Lush's body was found inside the trailer after it was returned to his home province. CBC News reports that an email from the Ontario Police said they are conducting a review of the case, but they would not say whether police thoroughly searched the truck and trailer before sending it back to Newfoundland. Foul play is not suspected in Lush's death. A new law in Georgia gives insurance companies more protections when it comes to truck crashes. Governor Brian Kemp signed the bill into law on Monday. Following a crash, insurers in Georgia can now only be sued directly if a plaintiff can't find the driver or carrier that was involved, or if the carrier has gone bankrupt. Most states already have restrictions on direct action lawsuits. Georgia is now one of them. The Insurance Journal report that the states that do allow direct action suits have responded to nuclear verdicts by increasing rates or ending coverage altogether. The Texas Supreme Court is casting doubt on a truck driver's multi-million-dollar lawsuit. The case dates back to 2015, when court documents show Lauro Lozano fell asleep while driving a truck from Texas to Maryland. He crashed into another tractor-trailer in front of him, resulting in serious injuries. Lozano claims that the owner of the company he drove for told him to keep driving, even though he had exceeded his allowed hours of service. Fearing he could lose his job, Lozano kept driving with little rest. Lozano filed a lawsuit against his employers, and a jury ruled in his favor to the eventual tune of nearly $14 million. Fast forward to now, the Texas Supreme Court has called Lozano's employment status into question, kicking the case back to the appellant court. At the end, that could mean a smaller award or a reversal altogether. It's a case that involves a lot of ins and outs. For full details, check out our piece at landline.media. The state of Alabama has purchased the Foley Beach Express Bridge in Orange Beach, soon meaning no more tolls. In a press release, the governor said the bridge will become toll-free immediately upon the ownership change. Under the terms reached by the parties, Alabama DOT will pay $57 million to Baldwin County Bridge Company for the bridge and $3 million to the city of Orange Beach for local road improvements. In addition, the state DOT will commit to pursue widening Canal Road to 5 lanes between the new parallel bridges and an intersection improvement at the State Route 161-180 intersection in Orange Beach. Both projects were already included in the State Transportation Improvement Program for 2024 through 2027. The sale is expected to close in May, which will end the collection of tolls at noon on the date of closing. Pennsylvania will soon be the latest state to ban cell phone use while behind the wheel. The Associated Press reports that Governor Josh Shapiro's office said this week that the Democrat will sign the bill to ban motorists from handling a cell phone for almost any purpose while driving. This bill brings Pennsylvania in line with every one of its neighboring states. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration banned truck drivers from handheld cell phone use back in 2012. Since then, many states have come on board to ban all road users from handheld devices while behind the wheel. And finally, a man in Texas has claimed the title of the world's oldest skydiver. UPI reports that Alfred Blaschke recently took the leap from a plane at 106 years old. He'd originally earned the title back in 2020, but his record was broken by a Swedish woman who was 103 years and 259 days old when she went skydiving. He's now recaptured his title. During his record-breaking jump, he was joined by Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who made his first jump. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Ashley. As mentioned, we're in the middle of our Mission Military Appreciation Campaign. To take part and give back, just go to OOIDA.com and click on Become a Member. You can join or renew your membership for a discounted rate, and 10% of that total will go into the Truckers for Troops Fund, with OOIDA matching that money. And in the spirit of giving back, Ashley's back after the break with a conversation she recently had with an Army veteran and former truck driver who fell on some hard times, but has a Veterans Community Project to thank for helping him get back on his feet. So stick around. That story and more coming right up. But first, a break. Landline Now continues in just a moment.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Capital Reman is your leading source for quality remanufactured engines and components. Capital Reman stands ready to serve all OOIDA members to help reduce costly engine repairs or replacement. Visit capitalreman.com today and use code OOIDA10 to save.
Get the most power and performance out of your rig with Howe's Diesel Defender. It provides maximum lubricity and contains specialized IDX4 detergent to clean and prevent deposits and safely removes harmful water. Visit HowesProducts.com for more information.
Attention professional drivers, do you owe money to the IRS? Integrity Tax Relief Group frees drivers from IRS trouble. Call for help now, 855-976-4291. That's 855-976-4291.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Landline Now, welcome back. This week, we've been shining a light on OOIDA's efforts to support our military members. One of the ways the association gives back is by donating money to the Veterans Community Project of Kansas City, where a tiny home community serves homeless and at-risk veterans. Landline Now's Ashley Blackford recently had the chance to sit down with Richard Middleton and his dog Loki, who are current residents. Here she is with that story.
So we're here today at the Veterans Community Project talking about Loki. Tell me a little bit about Loki.
Loki came out of Miami. My stepdaughter went down there and got her when she was a puppy. And I was working a trucking company that her boyfriend had. So I've been around her all her life. And about 4 years ago, they decided that they didn't want her, so I stepped up and decided I'd go ahead and take her. All of my dogs have been, here and there for a while, and the ex-girlfriend I had a Great Dane, and she wanted her, so it's like, go for it. So basically I had no dog, and she's a comfort to me, pain in the butt at times, but a comfort. The situation that I got into about 90 days ago, January, where my stepdaughter decided she was going to take money from me, and she threatened to kill her, and that's basically why I left Florida. Mm-hmm. Took her with me. We came up here. We've been living in the car for over 90 days. And without this place, we'd still be living in the car. So I'm very appreciative of Veterans Community Project.
How did you hear about the VCP here in Kansas City?
Basically, I'm trying to remember that. My memory's not great, but
that's okay.
When I called the crisis helpline, first time I've ever done that with the VA. So you call Washington, D.C. Doesn't matter what state you're in, you always call Washington, D.C. is where you end up going to. They end up calling you back and giving you resources. And this is one of the resources for Kansas City that they came up with. Now, I guess there's other cities like Denver and South Dakota. I've been trying to read up on it. Mm-hmm. And really, these are thoughtful people. They thoroughly help you out. They take their time to listen to you. If they hadn't done that, then I'd still be in the car. And it's like very appreciative of it. I can't say much more about that except just really appreciative. And Loki also, they've taken her in.
What was the process like after you called the VA and they put you in contact with the VCP here in Kansas City? What was the process like in getting here?
The first one was the first interview where they get to know you and you get to know them. The second one is basically they want to know who you are. What you're telling them is truthful. Is basically all they're asking. Is they're just asking for a truth. Doesn't matter whether it's bad, just the truth. And if you honestly tell them the truth, it makes the process better. And after the second interview, they go on a Friday and they discuss all the people that they've interviewed and stuff, and they'll either offer you a place or they'll offer help in another way. They're not going to just shun you out. They try to help people, and that's what I really appreciate about them.
What did it feel like when you got the call that they said, we have a spot for you and Loki?
There's a joy that you basically, you fought hard for what you're doing. Homelessness is not happy, it's not a great feeling. And once they said yes, it was like a weight off my shoulders and off of hers too. I mean, the car, that was her safe space. So anywhere we went, she would end up wanting to go back into the car. So now, it's been a month now, and she has a place. She even knows she's got her dog bed in there. We've gotten our routine down. She's being happier. So basically, like I say, I can't thank these people enough. The joy that you know that you're going to be able to get out of the car. I had a car. Some people don't. Some people have to walk. And it's a hard life.
Now, through the interview process, a lot of homeless shelters don't take dogs. A lot of people have to surrender their animals. They can't bring them. Here is a unique situation because you can. What was that like to learn and to know that you could bring her along?
Well, it was life-changing because basically it's like I would rather sleep on the street with her than to give her up. Plain and simple. Other than that, once I found out that they'd accept her, I fought hard to get the place. I told them no lies, just exactly who I am. Used to drive a truck for 35 years, so it's like never thought that I'd be out of a truck, but then when my heart did what it did, I basically had to quit driving. So I was out of that work, and I was basically down in Florida, just surviving down there. Basically, I was paying like half the rent, and that's expensive. But I was just fighting to stay down there because I got arthritis, and the cold just really tears me up.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, that's the only reason why I was down in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't even fish anymore. My arms are that bad, so.
Do you mind if I ask you, now did you serve in the Army? Do you mind if I ask you about that?
Basically, I joined in 1973, as soon as I got out of the high school. Most of my friends also. I mean, that's back in the draft. So I was over in Germany, Büdingen, West Germany. And my father was dying at that time. They called me back over to the States. And basically it was like I was in a period to where my father was dying. I was working out of Fort Leonard-Wood, or not Fort Leonard-Wood, Fort Leavenworth. I was doing burial details up there while he was passing away. And it was like, basically all I asked the government for was a compassionate reassignment, which I was a tanker. So I was in a tank. Drove the tank. Fort Riley, Kansas. Guess what they do? Same thing. Tank. I wanted to go from the 3rd Armored to the 1st Armored. That's what I asked them. That way, instead of about 5,000 miles away from my mother, I was only about a couple hundred miles away, which she was taken to death hard, and we had a younger sister. My sister is 16 years younger than I am, and I was the youngest out of the family. So that's all I asked the government. And the government at that time, that's when Nixon and Ford, all of that stuff was going on, that Watergate stuff. So basically I ended up getting lost in the shuffle, and they just said they could let me out. And it was just one day where I was just not happy with them. So I said, yeah, go ahead and let me out. So it's an honorable discharge. Fine, I served what I could serve.
Yeah, that's... talk to me a little bit about how you said you trucked for 35 years. Talk to me, how did you get into trucking?
Basically, I was working for a company down in Kansas City, and they got bought out by Cisco. So I was driving a straight truck. And basically at Fort Leonard, when I was down there, I was the first person to ever pass 100% written and 100% driving. That's how I got into the driving aspect of it. And I just went and was driving a straight truck doing deliveries, LTL, to grocery stores, not grocery stores, but like schools, stuff like that, restaurants. And I went from a straight truck to one day they said, here's a tractor trailer. So, okay. So my route had grown that much more. So I ended up learning how to drive a tractor trailer. And then from there, I decided I wanted to go over the road. So it was basically just stepping up into the next tractor trailer. Unfortunately, I do good at what I do, so they press you in doing more and more. So that's why once you get into trucking, and these kids don't understand, it's a 24/7 job, 365 days out of the year. Mm-hmm. I would drive for 3 months, take 2 days off, go right back at it for another 3 months. Because when the wheels are not turning, you're not making money. Mm-hmm. So
how long have you been at the VCP so far now?
Be a month next week.
Okay.
So it's getting to feel good, mm-hmm. and it should getting better. They're helping me with I had a brain concussion and fractured skull back in 1968, and it does, as you get older and older, it creeps up. And that's like I lose the names of people, what I'm doing sometimes. That's why I try to write down stuff, keep an appointment, and Kevin's been helping me with getting my organization back together and stuff. And like, it's more than just a place. It's these people, all of these men and women here, and including all of the residents, will help you. All you have to do is ask. Yep. It's just like Wolf, he's my next door neighbor. He lost his dog last week. So that was a bad time, but he's taking it good. And, well, now he's got a new bike, so.
Yeah, there you go. How helpful is it to be surrounded by other veterans who, fallen on hard times and are able to kind of come together and have the support that VCP offers?
Everybody has something. And when you're in the service, everybody has your back.
That was Landline Now's Ashley Blackford talking with Richard Middleton, a resident of the Veterans Community Project in Kansas City, Missouri. To take part in Mission Military Appreciation, just go to the website OOIDA.com and click on Become a Member. You can join or renew your membership for a discounted rate, and 10% of that money will go into the Truckers for Troops Fund, with OOIDA matching that money. Again, that's at OOIDA.com. You can also call the membership department during business hours at 816-229-5791. And if you have the address of someone in the military who's serving overseas, send us their information so we can send them a care package at troops@OOIDA.com. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off Truckstop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2024 when you purchase Load Board Pro.
And we're back. Thought we'd take a little time right now to take a step back and take a look at a couple of issues that have been in the spotlight in recent days and add a little context and analysis where we can. Joining us to help with that, Mark Schirmer and Tyson Fisher. Mark is a senior editor for Landline Magazine, and Tyson is the magazine's associate editor. Tyson, Mark, good to see you.
Great being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Always good to have you. Always a lively discussion. And I have a feeling that it's going to be even livelier this time because we're talking electric trucks, electric vehicles, I guess, in general here. The updates, the reactions, the reports, the conversations have really been coming in at rapid succession in recent weeks, especially in recent days as well. I want to start with the EPA Administrator Michael Regan appearing before a Senate committee this week. He was there to defend the fiscal budget request for his department for 2025. What it turned into, and there was some of that for sure. But what it turned into, it seemed like and felt like he was taking fire on these emission rules that have been coming out, so many of them. And we talk about lively discussions. There were certainly some lively discussions there during that hearing, Mark.
Yeah, 100%. And as you might expect, I mean, there's some pretty heavy-handed mandates that have been coming out of EPA in recent years. And when you look at some of these things, obviously in the trucking industry, we're all very familiar with all of the requirements and things that they do that affect trucking. But when you look at these things too, when we're talking about light vehicles, kind of a move toward electric, and you start, now the entire state, it's not just those, the people in trucking that have to deal with it, it's everybody. And so you get people, really outspoken, and there's a lot of good points being raised. I mean, we're talking about as we move forward to this, the charging infrastructure, is it there? How much? It is not. It is not. And when we talk about the amount of charging stations that would be needed, I think that they're looking at like 60,000 now, that they would need 1.4 million by 2032. A stat that came out from the OOIDA Foundation here recently. I mean, when you look at all of this, all the operational concerns and the costs, and that, some towns don't use as much power as it would cost one like trucking fleet to power this. So there's a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, and you can understand why there were a lot of senators out there that had a lot of questions, and sometimes no questions, just maybe a 5-minute rant. As Senator Loomis was one of the examples of that.
Yeah, and it's interesting. In this case in particular, with EPA Administrator Regan testifying there, and Secretary Buttigieg in recent days and weeks as well, is that they've put all these proposals out there, and these rules have been moved through really quickly. The senators and representatives, lawmakers who are expressing these concerns are essentially the voice of people out there that we know have concerns, right? And trying to add some accountability, I think, for all the things that we're seeing out there, because it feels very rushed. And I think that's a very diplomatic way, perhaps, to put it. But, I mean, and Tyson, you've been covering this as well. We're going warp speed toward this goal, but we're just blowing through all these hurdles and things that we need to be addressing along the way.
It's 100% putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
I mean, it absolutely is in so many different ways. I mean, the cost is the big one here. I mean, we talk about the infrastructure. I mean, it's not just the infrastructure. We're talking about operational cost and what that will mean to the consumer, not just the trucking industry. And so one thing I want to talk about, this just hit my desk before I came in here today. Ryder just released a white paper that quantifies the cost to convert to electric trucks. And so what they found was there's a 5% increase in cost for light-duty electric vehicles, which is about what you would expect, a modest bump. But when it comes to converting their Class 8 trucks, it would be a 94 to a 114% increase. So double the cost, basically what that means. So the example that they give is the cost to operate a diesel truck in Georgia is just under $300,000. That includes labor, the truck payment, fuel, insurance, all that stuff. The cost to operate an electric truck with an equal production output would be more than $600,000. So again, we're talking double increase, and most of that is just the truck payment itself. So to pay for an electric truck would be a 500% increase of that of a diesel truck. And so again, for the general public, it's like, yeah, well, that's, comes down to the trucking company and whatnot, but there's the trickle down of cost to the consumer, and Ryder quantify that, and this is where it gets crazy. So according to this white paper, the cost burden of converting to electric trucks will add up to 1% to overall inflation. So the inflation rate, overall inflation for all consumers.
That money's going to be passed down.
It'll be passed down. So when you double the cost of a trucking operation, it's going to raise the shipping rates.
Someone's got to pay for it.
Someone's going to pay for it, and it always comes down to the consumer. And these are the type of things that just weren't addressed with these emission rules. And the thing is, I want to walk that back a bit. It was ignored. It was absolutely mentioned. These unintended consequences were 100% mentioned in comments that were submitted to the EPA. They're just being ignored, and now we're seeing all these studies and white papers and whatnot that are absolutely quantifying. It's basically sending out a warning, saying that it's happening. It's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're going to see here, I think, over the coming months, if I were to get my crystal ball out. I think we're going to see more companies like Ryder, more of these carriers crunching the numbers and essentially saying, hey, this sounds good. We want to do things efficiently. We want to make sure that we're taking care of the environment and this and that. But the cost of this is going to be so astronomical, we're not going to be able to do this. I wonder, you would think, if enough companies came out with their own analysis of this, like Ryder has just done, and pointed this out, you wonder if the people who are making the policies will listen and do something about it. I don't know the answer to that, and I maybe suspect that they maybe won't. But you would think they can't ignore that, right? If more companies like this are coming out and saying this.
Right. You can't ignore it. And so right now, there's a Republican-led effort to overturn the emissions rules, both for passenger vehicles and trucks. So, yeah, right now, before Congress, there's what's called a Congressional Review Act resolution. This is basically the way for lawmakers to overturn a recently passed rule. So that is currently going through Congress. I'm just going to be honest, it's probably not going to go anywhere.
I was going to say, yeah.
And that's just the nature of how these CRAs work. I think there's been 250 CRAs in the past since 96 and only 20 passed. So that being said, it does put the lawmakers on the record for saying, I am against this and I'm trying to do something about that. However, this is where it's going to come down to a challenge at the courtroom. It's going to come down to that. So right now, they're I think pretty much every Republican-led state has signed off on a lawsuit against the EPA to block the emission standards for passenger vehicles. As far as I know, there's no such lawsuits that's challenging the heavy-duty vehicle rule, but that's just not yet. I think this is a matter of when, not if, a similar lawsuit is going to be filed. So that's one thing. So that's one thing to kind of look for, is that this is going to be challenged in the courtroom. Absolutely. And it's going to come down to the cost burden. I'm sure it's going to be a huge argument there. So it's going to put undue burden on these states and transportation and whatnot. And then again, this Ryder study that just came out, it's stuff like that.
It's going to put pressure on everybody.
It's going to put pressure on everyone, and so it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. But that's the thing to really look forward to, is the challenge in the courtroom.
Yeah, and if you're going to hang your hat on anything, that's going to be the thing that
100%,
you would want to hang your hat on. In terms of something maybe putting a stop to all of this. Mark, you mentioned the OOIDA Foundation. They put out that, I guess it's a report, essentially, right, recently, raising a lot of these concerns, right, about the cost, about infrastructure, or the lack thereof. They did, raise something. We've heard something about hydro-treated vegetable oil from Atri recently. They had a report on this as being an alternative. These conversations are going to get going as well as we move forward here. I would imagine as people look for alternate ways to kind of cut these emissions down.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one thing to really that we focus on when we're talking about this issue, I think that people on the other side can easily kind of look at this and go, this is all about environmental concerns and about climate. And these people on the other side, they're just concerned about business, just concerned about money. They're not worried about the environment. And that's just not the case. If you look at it, one of the things out of this report was showing all of the progress that trucking has made. I think it was like in the mid-1980s. Now, it would take 60 trucks to emit the same amount that was back then. They've done things. They are looking for renewable fuels and in different alternative ways. And that was one of the things that was brought up at a House hearing a little bit more than a week ago, where they was talking about we want to be leaders in this. It was a representative for a trucking company, Pitt, Ohio, and he was talking about, all of the strides that we've made. We want clean energy as we can do it, but what they're putting out right now just isn't attainable for a lot of the reasons that, Tyson kind of outlined there out of those white papers. There's just, there's not the infrastructure. The cost can be too much. The ability to refuel, and we talk about hours of service and all of this, and you got to stop because your range isn't the 500 miles that they would normally go. There's just so many different problems and concerns that have not been addressed, but that doesn't mean that, all these truckers, they have families too. They want clean air. Everybody wants clean air, wants a healthy environment, wants their kids to grow up in a healthy environment. So, this is the thing is that, truckers and people in business like that should not be painted as villains in this type of argument. They want the same things we all do, but we need to do it in a way that makes sense, that doesn't put hardworking people out of business and make things more difficult on everyone.
Yeah, we've got 2 minutes. Let's solve this, guys. Can we do it?
Well, what would solve it? It's just the free market. This is kind of what you pointed out. It's like, look, the largest overhead cost for any fleet, not counting the truck driver themselves, right, is fuel. Fuel's the largest overhead cost. If fleets had the option of completely eliminating that cost by just converting from, diesel to electric, they would jump on it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. That would reduce so much overhead costs. But obviously, it's not there yet. Otherwise, they would have jumped on it. And they're just waiting for the feasibility, 100%.
Yeah. Ideally, it would be one of these things where we see a little bit of this and a little bit of that, right? Maybe passenger vehicles, we start slowly with mandates there for electric vehicles because the cost there is not nearly as high as it is for heavy-duty trucks. We look at hydro-treated, vegetable oils and biodiesel and this and that, and we get a patchwork, and maybe all of that comes together to solve this issue. I think we solved it, right?
There we go. Yeah, right.
I don't know. We'll see where it goes, but this is a conversation that's going to continue, and it's going to really ramp up, I think, in the coming months and coming years, and certainly there will be a lot of pitfalls and problems along the way, but we'll figure it out somehow, I suppose.
I mean, yeah, and one thing to look at in the future is hydrogen. That's going to be a big focus in the future. We'll just kind of see how that plays out with federal funding is going to play a huge role in how far we go as far as hydrogen goes, because that's for the long haul applications. It's more likely going to be that as opposed to electric battery.
There you go. Tyson, Mark, we'll have to leave it there, but I'm sure we'll talk about this again. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
You can check out Mark and Tyson's work in every issue of Landline Magazine and every day on landline.media. We'll take a break here, but Landline Now returns in just a moment.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Firestone tires are for more of everything, with more durability for more miles and more confidence in your fleet. Firestone's tested tires help fleets save with value where it matters most. Learn more at bridgestonenationalfleet.com/4moremiles.
Today's rising costs affect everyone. Replace your harmonic damper with a genuine Vibrotech TVD viscous damper to prevent costly repairs and downtime. Keep your money in your pocket and your truck on the road with Vibrotech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
In line now, welcome back. The OOIDA board is made up of more than 20 members who represent the trucking industry. One of those members is Doug Smith from Utah. Doug has been trucking for more than 50 years now, and over that time, he's made his voice heard by joining committees to ensure the voice of drivers is heard. Doug, thank you for joining me. I want to start off by asking, what are the groups that you're currently a part of?
I'm on the FMCSA Driver Advisory Committee, and I'm on the NHTSA, National Highway Safety Transportation. I don't know if I got that right. You can kind of pull up any three letters in the alphabet, and there's a government agency that corresponds.
You're not wrong there.
With NHTSA, I'm on the advisory committee for underride protection. Mostly we're talking about side underrides, and a lot about rear underrides, and even the front overrides.
Now, for the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration Committee, how long have you been on that one?
For the Driver Advisory Committee, I think that's we're on a couple of years of that now.
A couple of years. How did that come about? How did you get on that one?
Well, OOIDA put my name forward to be considered for that committee, and it included, my background and experience. I'd also done a interview with Overdrive magazine about advocating for overtime, and that was one of the things that I brought forward on that Driver Advisory Committee, and it was all about how do we retain drivers in the industry so we can avoid this so-called shortage, which was really a retention problem. So that Driver Advisory Committee was how do we make the job attractive that people will stay in the industry. And the low-hanging fruit to me was pay overtime. Instead of just having guys work 60 to 70-plus hours a week, and every driving job you see advertised, make $120,000 a year, $90,000, $100,000. They're all over the map at the high end of the scale. Those jobs are 60, 70-hour-a-week jobs. And that was a shock to the acting administrator at the time of the FMCSA, that those jobs are like that they don't get overtime. She had no idea that did not include overtime. Absolutely no idea. And so that started a conversation in Washington on those circles about, hey, we've got to take a look at this Fair Labor Standards exemption from overtime. Dates back to 1938. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that exemption was not encourage drivers to work such long hours, because then the employer would have to pay, or the drivers would be seeking overtime. So they exempted the drivers from overtime, which had the absolute opposite effect. Now, who could see that coming?
Yeah, really.
It's like, if we're going to exempt drivers from overtime, we can work them like a rented donkey then.
Now, you said the administrator, had no idea that this was a thing. When you do see those advertisements of, $100,000, $120,000 a year you could make in trucking. What other, does that happen often when you're around the table, that you're sitting there and things come up? And I guess I'm curious, what is the representation for trucking? Do you have anyone else in the room with you that has a background in trucking?
Well, on that committee, there's over 22 members, I think, about that. And they were all driver experienced. Every one of them on there had been a driver. And that was a very good committee. And they brought up a lot of different points about parking and safety and a place to be and sleep in confidence that you're going to wake up in the morning. But I think the biggest eye-opener for the acting administrator at the time was that, what, no overtime? Are you serious?
What else does the FMCSA Driver Advisory Committee, what are they responsible for?
Well, they answer questions from FMCSA administrators that want to know about, well, why are things the way they are? Why do we have this driver shortage? Why are we having no place to park? So we tell them what our view from the windshield is.
Do you have any examples? I know you just gave one, but, of other things. Do you find obviously there's a committee for it, so there's some level of them being open and willing to hear. But do you have any examples of things that they've been surprised by, like you mentioned the Overtime Act? Anything else?
Well, it actually led to some legislation. I don't know that it's been pushed by FMCSA. I would say no. It's probably been pushed by organizations like OOIDA. I forgot the name of the acronym they use. It's like Drive or Fast or something like that. But it was like Overtime for Truckers Act. And it's not gaining any traction because we have other organizations that say, oh, this would cause confusion and delay, just like the guy on Thomas the Tank Engine says.
You said there's other truckers on the committee. Is there ever any differing of opinions on things? I know, like the driver shortage in the industry, there's some who say there is, some who say there isn't. Do you ever find that?
No, everybody kind of nods knowingly at each other's comments. But yeah, what he said. Yeah, what she said. Now, this is on the Driver Advisory Committee. The ACUP Committee for the Advisory Committee for Underwriter Protection is an entirely different matter. I am the only one on that committee that represents owner-operators and small motor carriers, unfortunately. There's a representative from the American Trucking Association, and our votes pretty much line up lockstep with each other. There's members that are representing the manufacturing of trucks and trailers. There's safety advocates like Citizens Responsible for Safe Highways, Reliable and Safe Highways, a crash group. And the committee on that is way overloaded on safety advocates and victims' families, engineers, and crash reconstructionists and insurance industry. And then you've got two people representing motor carriers. And that's why the votes are so lopsided and the arguments are vitriolic in nature. And the last committee meeting we had, I put forth a motion that a consensus means 75%. And if you look it up in the dictionary, it means general agreement. And in other federal committees, it's been 75%. Well, this committee voted that a consensus would mean 50% plus one. And I accused them of changing the definition of words. And I said, a majority is not a consensus. 50% plus one is definitely not a consensus. And they shouted me down and said, well, this has already been decided, and we can decide it, and we have done so, and this is 50% plus one will be consensus for this committee. So that's the kinds of things that we're dealing with over there.
And lastly on this, can you talk to me, like you just touched on a little bit, but the importance of having, a driver's voice heard. I realize not everyone can be on a committee, but talk to me about the importance of reaching out to lawmakers, especially through OOIDA's website, Fighting for Truckers. Why is that important?
Well, back to membership. It's not your $35 that OOIDA needs. It's to be able to say, we represent you. We represent to a congressman or you say, we have 500 members in your district, and this is affecting them in this manner. Take a look at this. See if you agree. That's why we need your $35, is to put you on the list of people we can say, we represent these people, and they don't want this to happen because, speed limiters is going to adversely affect safety on the highway for all of us. Take a look at it. We need the numbers. We need the numbers more than the $35.
That was OOIDA board member Doug Smith talking about the committees he's currently on. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford. That's our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to join us again tomorrow at the same time. Stay safe.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome,
and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.